Hi, my name is Sarah. At the beginning of the semester, I identified myself as a white, female, heterosexual, Jewish by blood person. I thought that it was important to include that I am Jewish by blood, but not a practicing Jewish person because there is a difference, um, even if people don't know it. I also do identify as a Jewish person because my family was put in concentration camps during the Holocaust, so I think that is a relevant portion to who I am today. The women in the panels were Jewish, and they kind of were able to relate to how I felt about being a Jewish person just because a lot of people in the public see a Jewish person as like looking some way or acting some way, and it's not exactly that.
It's actually really difficult to publicly express and identify as a Jewish person because of the dangers that kind of surround it. Specifically, when the swastikas were recently drawn at school, I had always been taught from a really young age that I should never identify as a Jewish person. If people ask, I just am not any religion, and I was not born into the Jewish religion, especially. This was the first time that I had ever experienced any type of discrimination, which I'm lucky, but discrimination is only one of the many issues and topics that we've discussed in this class. Additionally, throughout the class, we've talked a lot about the color line and racism and how those kind of work together. Um, so just a quick story that actually happened pretty recently was I was on the phone with my friend, and she was talking about some of my friends that I had in high school, and she referred to them as blackies, and I was just kind of in shock. Through this statement, I just really realized how racism is still very much so alive. After learning about all the different messages and stories and concepts and issues in society, I thought that it was really great to know in order to learn about other families in society, which was done through the in-depth family study. The family that I studied, the father was from Puerto Rico. When he traveled from Puerto Rico and moved to the United States, he lived in Brooklyn, New York. He changed his name from Julio Peter Rivera to just Pete Rivera because he wanted to change any portion of his life that had anything to do with not the United States. Additionally, he only learned English in the United States, and he would only speak English in the United States because he thought that that was really important in order to assimilate. Even though the story of how Pete changed his name and how Native Americans changed their name, which was mentioned in the book, isn't exactly the same as Pete changed his name on his own terms while Native Americans were forced to change their name, I thought that it really showed how white culture and white people influence society and influence the United States, even though we try to perceive ourselves as we don't and that we're very diverse. I just don't think that's true. Lastly, I really think it's important to talk about white culture because it was so discussed in class so often. At the beginning of the semester, as everyone knows, we try to define practices and traditions that would define white culture, or what is white culture. And a lot of the words and phrases and practices that were written on the board, people were really upset by because that didn't define them. In the D'Angelo reading, it says that whiteness refers to a set of cultural practices that are usually unmarked and unnamed, which, based on that class, we can all say is true because we weren't able to define whiteness as anything. Even though the white identity culture discussion was very difficult, I think that finding and expressing your true identity is really important to yourself. In the Helms reading, it states that if you don't speak about it, then others aren't aware of the differences, specifically in race. But this goes along with all parts or attributes of a person, that if those aren't talked about, people won't understand that there are differences between race, sexuality, gender, etc.